The late afternoon sun dipped below the mountains as Emily Harper clutched a crisp white envelope, her pulse pounding louder than the grandfather clock ticking in her parents' cozy vacation cabin on Aspen Lake. What had begun as a quiet Sunday dinner had spiraled into a storm of accusations. Her father, Richard Harper, a man once known for his warm smile, was now pacing the living room with clenched fists and a face flushed red with fury. "How could you be so selfish?" Richard roared, his voice echoing off the cedar-paneled walls. "Your sister needs that money for her startup." "You have more than enough." Emily stood frozen, disbelief twisting her stomach into knots. She had come here expecting laughter, maybe a home-cooked meal, not an ambush about why she was failing to financially support the family. At 33, Emily had carved out a thriving career as a self-taught day trader. Every dollar she had came from her own determination, trading long nights of sleep for charts, candles, and market swings. For the past 5 years, she had quietly shouldered the Harper family's burdens, paying property taxes on the beloved lakeside cabin, covering her younger sister Lily's car payments when she couldn't afford them, even footing the bill for family vacations that were packaged as gifts but felt more like obligations. Yet here she was, accused of abandoning her family. "Dad, I've been paying for everything." Emily's voice finally broke through the thick tension, trembling but firm. "The taxes on this place, Lily's business trips, Mom's medical bills, insurance wouldn't touch. I've done it all, and I can't keep doing this forever." Her mother, Margaret, sat on the couch, eyes cast downward, hands wringing a dish rag, as if the fabric could absorb her discomfort. She didn't say a word. Richard ignored Emily's plea, his voice dripping with righteous indignation. "We gave you everything growing up. Now that we need you, you're turning your back on us while your sister is working so hard to make something of herself." That's when Emily spotted a corner of an official-looking envelope peeking from beneath a glossy magazine. She reached for it, her father lunging too late. The words Trust Fund and Lily Harper leaped off the page, searing themselves into Emily's mind. She scanned the document as Richard barked, "That's private!" But it was too late. The truth stood naked in the fluorescent light of the living room. It wasn't just a modest fund, but a substantial trust. $350,000 set aside solely for Lily, the same Lily who'd been gifted a car at 16 while Emily rode the bus, who attended a private university on parental support while Emily worked 2 jobs just to afford community college. The pieces of a painful puzzle clicked into place. Emily's sleepless nights, her financial sacrifices, the constant reassurances that money was tight. It was never about shared hardship. It was favoritism, plain and brutal. In that moment, Emily understood everything was about to change. The illusions of a loving, equitable family shattered. And deep inside, a seed of resolve took root, a determination to confront the past. 5 years of quiet exploitation and demand, the respect and fairness she had always deserved. Emily's hands trembled as she folded the trust document back into its envelope. The numbers etched into her mind like a cruel joke. $350,000 reserved for Lily alone, with additional provisions for future deposits. Every sacrifice Emily had made, the missed meals, the 18-hour trading days, the stress headaches, had helped keep the Harper family afloat, while her father quietly secured Lily's future. The hypocrisy stung sharper than any insult Richard could have hurled. "When were you going to tell me about this?" she asked, her voice low, cold, each word landing like a hammer blow. The room felt eerily silent, broken only by the soft hum of the old refrigerator in the kitchen. Margaret kept her gaze locked on her lap, but the tightening of her jaw betrayed her discomfort. Richard's eyes darted from Emily to the coffee table, refusing to meet her gaze. "You weren't supposed to see that," he muttered, his voice stripped of its earlier bravado. "Investment decisions are complicated." "Not my investments, apparently," Emily shot back, her voice rising with years of pent-up hurt. "All those times I asked for help, when I was juggling 2 jobs in college, when my car broke down and I couldn't afford repairs, when I needed a deposit for my first apartment, you said there was no money, but it was there. It was always there, just not for me." Margaret finally looked up, her eyes glistening. "Sweetheart," she began in that soft, pleading tone Emily had heard so many times before. "You were always so independent. We're proud of you, Lily. Lily needs more help than you do." The twisted logic knocked the breath from Emily's lungs. Her success had become an excuse to deny her support. while Lily's dependence was rewarded with a safety net big enough to last a lifetime. She remembered every time she'd forced herself to smile at Lily's expensive new outfits, every forced laugh at her sister's stories of lavish nights out, all while scraping together rent money back in her tiny apartment. "I was punished for being capable," Emily whispered, more to herself than to them. She felt the ground shift beneath her feet as a lifetime of overlooked slights rearranged themselves into a clear, damning pattern. She was the fallback, the reliable one, the silent app. Richard, sensing his authority slipping, tried to change the subject. He reached into a drawer, pulled out a fresh copy of the property tax bill, and slid it across the table. "The taxes are due next month," he said, his voice regaining its commanding edge. "The Homeowners Association increased their fees again." Emily stared at the bill, fury and heartbreak swirling inside her like a storm. Even after her discovery, even with the truth laid bare, he still expected her to shoulder the burden. It was as if her worth to them began and ended with her ability to pay. She picked up the bill carefully, folding it once, twice, then slipping it into her purse. "I'll take care of it," she said evenly. Richard visibly relaxed, his posture softening, but he didn't notice the steely glint in Emily's eyes. The drive back to her city apartment felt longer than usual. The familiar peaks of the mountains, usually a source of comfort, loomed like silent witnesses to her humiliation. Her phone buzzed relentlessly in the cup holder, texts from Lily and calls from her father lighting up the screen. Emily ignored them all. Tonight, she decided, would be the last time she'd let herself be played for a fool. Back in her apartment, the city skyline glowed against the darkening sky, but Emily barely noticed. She dropped her keys onto the kitchen counter, her movements mechanical. Her father's words and her mother's quiet complicity replayed in her head like a taunt. For so long, she had believed helping her family was the right thing, a sacred duty. Now she saw it clearly for what it was: exploitation wrapped in the guise of love. Emily settled at her desk and booted up her laptop. Her hand still trembled slightly, but her mind was clear, sharp. She opened a folder she'd meticulously maintained for years, labeled simply Family Contributions. Inside were subfolders containing every check stub, bank statement, Venmo transfer, and emailed receipt connected to her payments for the Harpers. For 5 years, she'd tracked each expense, both as a matter of financial discipline and as a way to reassure herself that she could afford this quiet generosity. Now it felt like evidence of a crime committed against her trust. Line by line, Emily tallied the property taxes she'd covered on the Aspen Lake cabin, $8,800 a year, for 5 years. Megan's, no Lily's car payments, totaling over $11,600. The roof replacement on the vacation home, $12,000 paid from her trading account. Her mother's knee surgery bills insurance wouldn't cover, $8,200. Add to that the family vacation she'd funded, nearly $22,400 spent on flights, hotels, meals, all gifts no one remembered. The total made her chest tighten, $119,740 in 5 years, almost as much as the trust fund that had been hidden from her. And that didn't include the lost opportunities to grow that money in her own investments. Something Emily, as a trader, could calculate all too well. She made a note to estimate the missed returns. She knew she couldn't do this alone. Emily picked up her phone and called Joseph Klein, the financial advisor who had helped her build her trading portfolio. Joseph had always been kind but direct, a rare quality in his profession. When he answered, she found herself blurting out everything: the trust fund, the years of payments, her father's refusal to acknowledge any of it. "This is quite a situation," Joseph said calmly after listening. "You've been remarkably generous, Emily, but this pattern isn't sustainable. You're enabling their dependence, and it's hurting your financial future." She swallowed hard. "I know that now," she admitted quietly. Joseph suggested meeting first thing the next morning. He also recommended involving a forensic accountant to formalize every transaction. "If you decide to pursue repayment or need leverage for a conversation, you'll want airtight records," he explained. The following day, Emily sat across from Joseph in his sleek downtown office. As she laid out her meticulously kept spreadsheets, Joseph's eyes widened. "You've done half the forensic work already," he said, almost impressed. "But you'll still need notarized statements, receipts organized chronologically, and an expert's certification." He introduced her to Victor Hernandez, a forensic accountant specializing in family financial disputes. Emily spent hours in Victor's office over the next week, providing statements, screenshots, emails, and bank records. Each piece of evidence felt like a small catharsis, a step toward reclaiming her power. As they worked, Victor looked up from his calculator. Most people in your situation don't have records this detailed, but your documentation is clear and thorough. It shows not just what you've paid, but how systemic this pattern has been. For the first time since discovering the trust fund, Emily felt a flicker of hope. This wasn't just about money anymore, it was about proof, clarity, and finally confronting a lifetime of inequity. She knew the road ahead would be messy, but armed with the truth, she wouldn't face it powerless. As Victor handed Emily the neatly organized binder containing every transaction, she felt the weight of the past 5 years settle tangibly in her hands and, strangely, felt lighter for it. The documentation was meticulous, undeniable. Every dollar, every check, every desperate moment when she'd stepped in to save her family, while they quietly secured Lily's future behind her back. That night, Emily sat at her kitchen table, the binder open before her, and drafted a plan. She started by logging into her bank accounts and canceling the automatic payment for Lily's car. The realization that she'd been quietly covering her sister's monthly bills for years, without a single word of thanks, felt surreal. Next, she methodically removed herself as an authorized payer on every family account, utility bills, property taxes, and any lingering subscriptions tied to her cards. Finally, with hands steady and heart pounding, she transferred $120,000 from her main trading account into a new, separate investment fund she labeled simply, My Future. Each click of the mouse felt like cutting another thread tethering her to the emotional blackmail she had mistaken for love. She closed her laptop, exhaled deeply, and realized it was the first time in years she wasn't bracing herself for the next family demand. The following morning, the backlash began. Emily's phone erupted with missed calls and text notifications, a chorus of panic she refused to acknowledge until she finished her trades for the day. When she finally opened her messages during lunch, she found an angry barrage. Lily's frantic texts blaming her for a bounced car payment. Richard's curt orders demanding she call him immediately. Margaret's gentle yet manipulative pleas to remember what family means. One voicemail from Margaret's number cut through the noise. Emily, your father is beside himself. The property tax payment hasn't come through. The due date is in a week. Lily can't make her car payment. We don't understand why you're doing this. Please call us back. There was no recognition of the trust fund, no acknowledgement of her years of financial support. Just a desperate push to restore the status quo. That evening, her building's security called. Richard was downstairs, insisting he wouldn't leave until Emily spoke with him. She felt the old fear grip her chest. But then remembered the binder, the canceled payments, the account labeled My Future. She straightened her shoulders and told the guard, Please inform him I'm unavailable. If he refuses to leave, call the police. The call ended with a quiet, Understood, ma'am. And Emily stood alone in her apartment, heart still racing but mind clear. Minutes later, her cousin Thomas texted, Your dad just got escorted out by security. Are you okay? She replied simply, I'm fine. Family financial disagreement. Thomas's unexpected response made her eyes sting. About time you stood up to them. The way they treated you was never right. Later, Emily opened the binder one more time, flipping through each receipt, each payment, each tiny sacrifice. She realized this wasn't just proof of what she'd endured, it was a roadmap showing exactly where she'd been and how far she'd come. She knew now the only way to end the cycle was to refuse to keep it alive. Tonight, she slept soundly, knowing her future was finally in her own hands and determined never to surrender that power again. The morning after Richard's dramatic visit, Emily awoke to a phone still buzzing relentlessly. She set it aside, determined not to let the noise shake her resolve. But by noon, the messages took on a more frantic, almost menacing tone. Lily's texts came in rapid succession. What the hell, Emily? My car payment bounced. Are you trying to ruin my credit? Dad is furious. Fix this now. Each message sounded more like a command than a plea. Richard's texts were even more direct. Call me immediately. This is unacceptable. You can't just abandon your responsibilities. Not once did any of them ask if Emily was okay. There were no apologies for the trust fund betrayal or gratitude for the years she had kept the family afloat. Only anger that their gravy train had stopped. Emily ignored them all, focusing instead on the trading day ahead. The market was particularly volatile, requiring every ounce of her concentration. It felt strangely liberating to lose herself in candlestick patterns and charts, knowing she was building her own future instead of patching someone else's. After the markets closed, she listened to a single voicemail Margaret had left. Her mother's voice was calm, but edged with desperation. "Emily, please, your father is upset. The property tax notice arrived with a late fee warning. Lily's car payment has defaulted. We don't understand why you're doing this. Whatever's bothering you, we can talk. Please call us." There was no recognition of the imbalance, no mention of the $350,000 trust, no acknowledgement of the years Emily had spent quietly draining her own accounts for their benefit. Just a plea to restore the comfortable dynamic they'd come to depend on. Before she could craft a reply, her building intercom buzzed. The security guard's voice came through, hesitant. "Ms. Harper, your sister is here. She's demanding to see you." Emily's heart sank. Lily. She checked the peephole and saw her sister on the other side of the door, arms crossed, foot tapping with impatient fury. Emily opened the door, but left the security chain latched. "What do you want?" Emily asked evenly. Lily's eyes blazed. "I want to know what's wrong with you. Dad says you're refusing to pay the taxes. My car payment bounced. Are you trying to ruin us? You've always helped before." Emily took a deep breath. "Because I didn't know I was being manipulated. Because while I was funding everyone's needs, Dad was building a trust fund for you. Over $350,000, Lily." Her sister's expression flickered from shock to guilt to anger. "That's different. I need that security." "You've always been the smart one, Emily. You have your fancy job. I'm still trying to find my way. And I paid your car payments while you found your way," Emily said sharply. "I funded family vacations. I paid for repairs on the lake house, all while being told there wasn't enough to help me." Lily flushed. "You never complained before." "I didn't know the truth before," Emily shot back, voice rising. "It's not fair, Lily." Lily's eyes hardened. "You'd let us lose the lake house? The place we spent our summers? How can you be so cold?" Emily stared at her sister, really looked at her, and saw someone who had been raised to believe she was entitled to endless support. "You have options," she said quietly. "You could use your trust fund." Lily's face turned pale. "That's not fair." Emily shook her head, a sad smile tugging at her lips. "No, Lily, nothing about this has ever been fair." She closed the door gently but firmly, knowing the fallout from this confrontation had only just begun, but certain she would never go back. Days passed with an uneasy quiet. Emily returned to her work routine, focusing on the markets and her own financial goals. Each morning, she woke up without the old knot of dread in her stomach. But she knew the storm wasn't over. It arrived in the form of an email from Uncle Peter, Richard's brother, with the subject line, "What's going on?" Emily's breath caught as she read, "Your father reached out asking for a $10,000 loan to cover late fees on the lake house. He says you're refusing to support the family anymore. This doesn't sound like you. Are you okay?" She sat back, the anger and betrayal flaring fresh. Her father wasn't willing to touch Lily's trust fund, but he was already knocking on doors, painting her as the villain. Emily exhaled slowly and opened the folder containing her financial records. She attached a PDF summarizing the nearly $120,000 she'd contributed to the family over 5 years, including notarized statements from Victor and a brief note explaining the trust fund she'd discovered. "I'm fine," she wrote back to Uncle Peter. "I've supported the family extensively, but recent revelations have forced me to set boundaries. Please see attached for context." The response came faster than Emily expected. "Holy hell, Emily, I had no idea. Greg always told us you were the successful one who didn't need help. This changes everything." That same afternoon, her phone lit up with a call from Thomas. "Emily, you need to know. Dad overheard Uncle Greg planning a family meeting at your parents' house this weekend," he said, urgency in his voice. "They're trying to rally everyone against you, saying you've abandoned your family responsibilities." Emily's pulse pounded in her ears. "So they're turning this into a family intervention?" she asked bitterly. "That's what it sounds like," Thomas replied. "But I'm going to be there, and I'll back you up." As Saturday approached, Emily prepared meticulously. She dressed in a tailored navy suit that made her feel confident and unshakable. She arrived at her parents' house to find the living room full. Aunts, uncles, cousins, everyone gathered with tense expressions. Richard stood by the fireplace, mid-speech, as Emily walked in. And she's refusing to pay the property taxes or help Lily. She's forgotten what family means, Richard was saying, voice raised with righteous indignation. I haven't forgotten, Emily interrupted evenly. Every head turned. She set her briefcase on the coffee table and met her father's furious gaze without flinching. I've simply remembered the value of my own life. Richard's face flushed. This isn't the time. It's exactly the time, Emily said, opening her briefcase and pulling out copies of the financial summary. She handed them to each relative in the room. I've contributed over $118,000 to this family in 5 years, while Dad told me we couldn't afford to help with my education or living expenses. Meanwhile, he created a $350,000 trust fund for Lily. The room erupted in shocked whispers. Aunt Catherine's voice rose above the murmurs. What trust fund? Emily looked directly at Richard. He hesitated, jaw tight, but said nothing, so she answered herself. A trust fund in Lily's name. Established quietly, while I was told the family was broke. Thomas stepped forward. It's true, I've seen the documents. Aunt Catherine rounded on Richard. Greg, is this true? You hid money for Lily while taking from Emily? For the first time, Emily saw fear flicker in her father's eyes. Fear of losing his carefully constructed image. As voices clashed and the room descended into chaos, she realized something profound. She was no longer alone. She wasn't the problem. She had been the scapegoat for a system of favoritism. And now, the truth was finally out. The living room pulsed with tension as shocked murmurs rose to a cacophony. Emily stood her ground by the coffee table, her heart hammering, but her expression calm. For the first time in her life, the weight of silence had shifted from her shoulders onto her father's. Richard's face was pale, jaw clenched so tight she thought it might crack. These are private family matters, he barked, voice trembling with rage more than conviction. But his words landed flat. The room had seen the documents. The numbers were undeniable. Aunt Catherine looked directly at Richard. Greg, how could you let Emily carry everything while you set Lily up for life? That's not private. That's shameful. Uncle Peter's eyes narrowed as he flipped through Emily's records. You always said you were helping both girls equally. Clearly you weren't. Emily glanced at Lily, who sat frozen on the couch, avoiding everyone's gaze. For years, her sister had lived in comfortable ignorance or perhaps willful denial. But now Lily's eyes were wide, cheeks flushed, as the reality of her privileged position unfolded before her. I never knew it was this much, Lily mumbled, voice cracking. I thought Emily just helped sometimes. Dad always said she was fine. Emily's eyes softened for a moment. I was never fine, Lily. I worked 2 jobs in college while Dad told me there wasn't money for my tuition. I took the bus for years while you got a new car. I paid thousands to keep the lake house your father is so desperate to save. And all along, he was building your future alone. Richard stepped forward, face red. This is enough. We don't air dirty laundry like this. Thomas, standing beside Emily, snapped back. This isn't dirty laundry, it's the truth, and you've hidden it long enough. The room fell quiet again, the silence broken only by Aunt Catherine's voice, soft but unyielding. Greg, you owe your daughter an apology and a plan to make this right. Emily took a steadying breath, her voice firm but clear. I don't want control of the lake house. I don't even want the money back. But I won't contribute another dollar until the favoritism ends, and until you recognize what I've sacrificed. Her mother, Margaret, finally looked up, tears in her eyes. Emily, I should have spoken up years ago. I always knew it wasn't fair, but your father said you were strong enough. Emily nodded slowly. I was strong, but that doesn't mean it was right. The weight of her words hung heavy in the room, like a verdict. For a long, breathless moment, no one spoke. Then Aunt Catherine stood up, facing Richard. I think you need to find a way to make amends to both your daughters, Greg, because this family can't heal until you do. Emily felt something shift in that instant, a current of support from relatives who had unknowingly played into Richard's narrative. The man who had always controlled the story now looked small and cornered, his authority unraveling under the weight of the truth. For the first time, Emily felt seen not just by her extended family, but by herself. The years of gaslighting, sacrifice, and silent resentment were over. Whatever came next, she knew she would never allow herself to be silenced or used again. As Emily walked out of her parents' house that evening, the late summer sky blazed with streaks of orange and purple, a breathtaking canvas that mirrored the storm of emotions inside her. The confrontation had been painful, raw, and long overdue. But with every step she took, she felt a piece of her old burdens fall away, replaced by a fragile but resolute sense of peace. She thought about how, for years, love in her family had come with silent conditions. An expectation that she would sacrifice without question, that she would bear every burden alone because she was strong enough. How many of us have been taught that same twisted lesson? That love means self-erasure. That loyalty means accepting unfairness without protest. That being capable makes you responsible for everyone else's comfort. But love should never require you to lose yourself. And true family, whether by blood or by choice, should lift you up, not weigh you down. Emily's story is a testament to the courage it takes to set healthy boundaries, even when it shakes the very foundation of what you've always believed about family. It's a reminder that generosity is beautiful, but it should never be exploited. That independence is a strength, but it should never be punished. In standing up for herself, Emily didn't just reclaim her finances, she reclaimed her self-worth. She reminded everyone in that room and everyone reading this story that fairness matters, that acknowledgement matters, that it's not selfish to expect respect in return for the love and support you give. As you reflect on Emily's journey, I invite you to look at your own life. Are there places where you've been giving endlessly, hoping for scraps of recognition that never come? Have you been carrying weight that was never yours to bear? Remember, you deserve relationships rooted in mutual respect, not silent expectation. You deserve to be seen, heard, and valued for who you are, not only for what you provide. If Emily's story resonated with you, if it made you reflect on your own experiences or opened your eyes to injustices you faced or witnessed, please share your thoughts in the comments below. Your voice might be the one that gives someone else the courage to stand up for themselves. And if you'd like to hear more stories that delve deep into the complicated, messy, and beautiful parts of life stories, that remind us of the importance of fairness, love, and self-respect, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Together, we can build a community where no one feels alone in their struggles, where we lift each other up and remind one another that being kind should never mean being taken for granted. Thank you for being here, for reading, and for having the courage to seek a better, fairer world for yourself and those you love.